There's so many good scenes in this book. I just cannot believe someone can just say that this book was just mean and just preach. Like, my heart feels moving while I talk about this.
If I was the voice.
Perfect! No, it was perfect! Our friendship is in danger right now.
Okay. Hear me out.
I was like, wait. I forgot.
I will put this on the table first. I have a problem with villains that are attractive. You just have to look at the potential.
I mean, Melanie, I'm secretly just really concerned for you that you're going to end up in a relationship with the same sort of man.
Brandon Sanderson, I am your fan, and I you will never see this because, but I love you. Perfect! And I have all my reasons, and I am here to defend these reasons. Hello everyone, welcome back to this podcast, Written with a Y. Yay!
Come on, Sky. It's a group
Exactly. I am your host, Melanie, and these are my lovely co-hosts that again are voluntarily and without any pushing from my part, co-hosting for this, your favorite podcast in the web. Today we're going to be discussing Brandon Sanderson, The Well of Ascension. This is the second book in the trilogy, Mistborn. We already discussed the first one, and today we're going to be discussing the second one. We are three. We all three read it. He read it for the second time after he was a teenager. You know nothing. No, you did know stuff.
But now you I was just a young, bored boy. And I didn't appreciate this book nearly as much back then.
Yeah, but now he did. And me and Emma for the first time, so we are very emotionally impacted by this book.
Finished it last night.
Yeah, she's like less than 24 hours into the experience. Right. That's what we're gonna be discussing today. I'm so excited. I think it's gonna be really cool and fun. I'm really excited. So before starting, we will have a non-spoiler review, and then we will go deep into spoilers, so be aware that that's gonna happen. For the non-spoiler review, I'll ask these people, what was your intake of the book? What was your, if you like it, and what was your overall score on the book, Skylar?
Man, it's quite a ride. It's a very different kind of book than the first. I think that's immediately obvious when you start reading it. It's very much more relational focused. There's a lot of interaction and dialogue between characters, and he does it very well. It reads surprisingly quickly, considering it's not as action packed. But yeah, easy 5 out of 5 for me.
5 out of 5?
Yeah.
Yes, that's my score too. Emma, what do you think?
I felt like it was, I agree. It's also very relationally oriented. I appreciate the levels to which he addresses concerns that I feel were raised in the first book really well. Mm-hmm. He didn't just leave his readers hanging. He was like, I see it, I'm getting there. Mm-hmm. And it was good. Yeah. And I also felt like it was just, you get to the end and it's oh, okay. And it did a really good job of really inciting in me, I want to read more of this. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel like this is a dead story. I don't feel bored with this yet. Mm-hmm. And even though it was a slower paced book, I felt like it maintained good tension the whole way through. Yep. So I would probably give it 4.7. Honestly, okay. I really liked it. There were a couple of things that I have concerns about, but
that's a step up from, what was it, 3.9 or something?
Yeah,
mine was 3.9 and yours was also 3.9?
Yeah, it was 3.
You start 4.2 and then you're we're oh, well, actually 3. Yeah. For me, I am the biggest fan of this book. I loathe every person that does not like it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I respect their right to be wrong, because this book is amazing and it's the best thing that has ever been written. I just do not find any fault with this. There are things as you were saying, I was angry at some stuff in this book, you said before, that there were things that you didn't like, but it doesn't talk bad about the book. It's simply, it's so well written that I don't like the things I shouldn't like. So it's just, perfect! And I have all my reasons, and I am here to defend these reasons. I watched this show called, this podcast called To Rumble, and I love them to death. They introduced me to Brandon Sanderson, so thank you very much, guys. However, they thought this book was mid. They thought it was just like a bridge book, and with all my love for you and respect, you are very wrong. Okay, and I'm here to prove it this day.
Oh boy.
I gave this book a 5 out of 5, not because I gave every category of the book a 5 out of 5, but because some categories have a 7 out of 5, so that summing up the points, it ended up being 5 out of 5. There's a couple things I'm like, okay, I think this could have been improved. I don't think this was perfect. That's like just a flawless book. But the other things that were non-flawless, how do you say that? Perfect. The other things that were so perfect just made it up to be a 5 out of 5. I'm in love.
Yeah.
Forever. So yeah.
And you don't forget the ending.
Yes.
If
Never.
that one sticks with you.
Forever.
Yeah.
The ending of the last 100 pages.
Yes.
Actually, I forgot the ending of
The first book.
the first book, Mistborn.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine. So here we do have spoilers for Mistborn. So Kelsey's death was terrible. I cried for like 30 minutes. I was depressed for the next 24 hours, but I got over it. But the things that happen at the end of the Well of Ascension, I don't think I'll ever like get over those.
I felt really like depleted by the end. I was like, okay, and now I have to just go live my life. Okay.
Exactly. And when a book can do that to you, it's just perfection. Mm-hmm. What would be a type of person you would recommend this book, guys? Would you recommend it? Obviously, you would recommend it if you gave it a good grade, but like, what would you say they would take out of the book? Why they should read it if they don't want to read it?
If you feel like the last book didn't like follow through on certain areas of like the world building and or the characters, I feel like particularly like there's a lot of depth added, particularly to Vin and Ellen in this story. Like I think it does a really good job of that. I really think that the world expands a lot more in this book. In the first book, when I read it, I was like, oh, there's not like that much of a culture going on. Like there's not as much. It feels a little shallow, paper thin in some places where you're like, okay, this is very like whatever. But in this book, I feel like Sanderson really like draws out all of those little different details and like even uses some of that like thinness as like part of what is emphasizing. And it opens up a lot more. I feel like there's a lot more to explore in this book.
Oh man, I think I'd say I was struck in the second reading of this by how much the characters continue to go to change. So a lot of the times in a book, like the author will have a clear like character development, and then at some point they kind of hit the end of that, and then they just sort of flatline and remain the same for the rest of the either book or the trilogy. That is not happening in these books. As the world changes, as the situation changes, the characters are continually reacting either passively or like actively to that, and you can just see this constant like either growth or evolution, sometimes a kind of degrowth, almost a lacking in some areas kind of comes out of the person that you wouldn't have noticed before. So I mean, particularly if you're at all interested in good character development and just like seeing really just good interactions kind of continually grow, it's a serious step up from the first book in that regard, I'd say.
That's really good. That is actually really good, guys. Like, that's exactly how I feel. I feel that everything that was lacking in the other book was fixed here. I would argue that the other book was lacking in those things. Because, like, someone can say he intentionally left it that way. Yeah, but there were things that were lacking, not in a bad way. Like, they were lacking because the world was not completely built. There was we were just going through these stories and, what's the word for that? It's like, organic.
Stage.
Yeah, it's just like growing organically, and it's just coming to what it is here. So it makes sense that it grows. Time happens, and people grow, and things change. So that was perfectly fine. There are a couple of things, again, that we'll talk a little bit more in the spoiler part, but there are a couple of things that I think, well, that's not a spoiler. Spoiler from the other book. I think Ellen's and Vince's relationship was lacking. I think he could have done the beginning of it better, even though it was not as developed as this book would develop it. But he could have done it better as the start of it, and he didn't. So those things were actually lacking, and they are perfectly fixed. It is perfectly fixed. So I think that's one of the reasons I like it, because I'm just like, oh, he did go back and fix what he had to fix, and that's a hard thing for an author. I don't think like adding so much new things and paying attention to little details that were lacking. It's just
Yep.
masterpiece. Brandon Sanderson, I am your fan, and I you will never see this because but I love you. You're amazing. Good, that's perfect. So now we're gonna go to spoiler part, and what we are going to do is first you're gonna stop watching if you have not read the book, because people should not listen to spoilers. That is heresy. Amen. That is just something horrible, and you are not normal.
It's so sad.
If you like spoilers. So, unless you are my roommate Natalie that just watches our videos and will never, thank you my friend, and will never read these books, that's fine, I allow you. But anyone else should stop if you have not read the first book. Now, the way that we're going to do this spoiler review is that I'm going to bring the different categories, and then we will give our overall score in that category, and we'll say what were the things that we liked, and kind of, I was telling the guys before we started that we are trying to compare this book to the first one, not a perfect essay comparison, because I can barely remember some stuff, but things that we can see that were improved, things that we can see that were better developed. So as they come, if you don't remember, that's fine, but we will try. We'll do our best. Okay, let's start with world building. In the first book, one of the complaints that I heard a lot was that the world was too small, that they only have this little kind of, what was the word, medieval-ish world here happening, only with the elements he put in there. Do you guys feel that there was an improvement in the world building in that sense, and what do you think improved?
I feel like, yes, this is the spoilers part, right?
Okay, yes, spoilers.
I feel like, yes, because one, I think you're introduced to more creatures that make the world take on its distinct sort of place.
Like Kalas.
Yeah.
And then
also
the Kandra.
You get explained more into that, and you get the sense that there are other things, even the mist having its own form, weird thing going on there. There's some things that you're okay, I feel like there's more in this world beyond just this medieval style thing. The other thing is, I think something that actually served really well in this is Sanderson pulling upon the idea of the religions and taking that that becomes a center point. I feel to his world building, because people, culture, ways of life feel they're very centered around religion, even just normally, and you know what I mean. And so it makes sense that because the religion has been kind of it's all shrouded, it feels thin, and so their world feels thin almost to themselves. Even they notice that. Even they feel
that's good.
There's gotta have been something before this. What was before this? And the
what are we lacking?
Yeah, the Terrorsmen feel very they gain a lot of depth in this book, and the humans gain a lot of depth in this book. Their backgrounds in general, where they were all coming from, because you're you realize that the Lord Ruler was obscuring this from us, and so now it feels there's a lot more of okay, this does feel other. This does feel different than our world. It's not just a simple little I want these people. This is just a fun little idea that I'm sticking over here. It feels a lot more okay, I see more of the cohesion of all of these people have been taken over and oppressed in this way, and they don't know their backgrounds, and it's very
And I like what you said about the Lord Ruler. Yeah, I like what you said about the Lord Ruler, because it feels after the Lord Ruler is gone, we can see that he was the one that was making this world stay static in this medieval thing. He was the one that was, as you were saying, obscuring the culture and the expansion of the minds of the people that were living there. All the things that were happening that some people complain about the first book were his intentions. It was his hand on this world, that he was not allowing the elements to be part of what makes the hierarchy in the world. That was what people were saying, why are the elements or just these people in the background? Well, the Lord Ruler wanted that because he didn't want no one to take bigger, higher power than him. So he was just keeping this society as we know it, or as was known in the medieval times, so that he could have control. And it's just explained. It's okay, there's a reason for this. You might not like it, but it's not just Brandon Sanderson couldn't create a big world. It's just that he created the world that the Lord Ruler had created, and now that the Lord Ruler is out, all these things are just
introducing us to new layers of it. Like, in this book, it definitely has, like, a spookier feeling to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the first book was, like, oh, revolution. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And this book feels like, oh, unknown. Like, we're not sure at all what's
Lost
happening.
in the dark a little bit.
And there's a lot of politics, but at the same time, it feels way more, like, mystical, almost. There's, a deep undertone to this one.
Yep.
It's like...
What do you think about the world building and that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you've said. One thing, I've started reading the third in advance, and one thing I've noticed is that you can, like, almost track, like, 3 different, like, layers of world building between each book. The first one is just Luthadel City. You get almost nothing but that city, and a little bit of the scattering landscape around, so you really don't see much of the world. On the scale that Sanderson's actually building it. In the second one, it expands. You see, other cities, political intrigue, other actors, you learn about the Koloss and there's other races, and it's like, it's like much more depth, and you get some of that mystery with, the mist spirit. And in the third one, it's just like, he goes all the way out. He pulls right back on the scale he's working with, and you see, like, way more of the picture. We actually, like, get geography of the globe as a whole, even. He's just layer after layer pulling back and revealing more and more. So I think a lot of the complaints and that sense of kind of like shallowness that can come through in the first book is pretty intentionally built that way. And so I won't obviously go into more of that because I don't want to spoil the third book.
That's really good. I love the new creatures, and going there, I think it kind of like falls into characters, but first they call us. They're just so disgusting. And the last episode I put up, you should go and watch. It's about monsters, and something that I was talking with my professor is that monsters, when they are written, they're so much more scary than when you can see them. So if you're watching a scary movie and you see the monster in a scary movie, it's not that scary as if you close your eyes and you don't see it when it's coming. Like, the idea of it, it's just as if our minds can mess up more. And I think something like that happened to me with the Koloss. I couldn't even picture it. Like, I was just, I could picture, like, they're blue, they're, like, very, very intense blood, like, red blood, but what does that mean? Like, how red can red be? And they're, like, their skin is just, like, flashing. It was so good. It was so bizarre in my mind, and I just couldn't help myself, and I looked for fan art, and it just was not it, It was a good idea, but I put that aside, and I kept reading, and I just cannot picture the colors, because they're so disgusting, and I think that in itself, just in the writing style, that usually Brandon's I have named him forever. I have baptized him with Brandonson. Okay, Brandon Sanderson. He's usually not like the best in making things super poetic, but I think he did a good job on describing these super weird beings that are just coming and again helping their world building on. Now we don't only have the Kandra. Now we don't only have the Mistwraith. How is it said that way?
Mistwraith.
Mistwraith? Okay, Mistwraith. Now we only have the Alamancers, but we also have these new beings and are very interesting how, like, what is moving them. The thing that they have, like, their money, like, they want to be human, and it's just so...
The weird parody of society.
That was freaky for me.
That
was
so
single-handedly, hands down, a moment where I was like, oh, this is not...
I
was like, weird. I might have to set this book down for a little bit. I'm like, I feel like a little too involved. I need to remove myself from whenever these things don't exist. Because you just feel like a deep, like, unsettledness. I would agree with you. Is like, I honestly think it's really, like, interesting how they're, like, obsessed with being human, and literally, like one of the things that I think is most interesting about their description is, like, they're either consumed by their skin and it's like falling off in flabs, you know what I mean, or they're so big, like the young ones are like all like, and or their skin is like, it's too tight, it's like pulling around their eye, like it just is,
they
like
literally tear out of their own skin,
but also not understanding what they are. It's, you can feel what Sazed is feeling, that he just wants to understand them, but you can't. So it's the idea of this world is very big, And there are so many things that have not been written in books. You cannot Google this. And
Yeah.
there's still so much to know. So even only this new being, this new creature being added to it just shows you how little you know about everything.
Yeah.
And also what in the world is going on with the, how you call it, inquisitors?
Inquisitors.
Oh.
What is going on? Like,
I'm stressed.
yeah, so that's part of the world building. We're not gonna enter to Marsh yet because he's in characters, but it's part of like adding to that world. It's just like, it's just in the back, and we barely get anything about what is going on. Like nothing. I think at the beginning we have Marsh, and like he finds the plaques. How do you call it? The metal. Plaque, okay.
The metal plaque.
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
The
yes,
plaques.
yes, yes, yes. I just have to do a compilation of all my mispronunciations in this episodes. Yeah. So like, yeah, the plaques. So I think, do we get anything else of the Inquisitors besides that? I don't think we get anything.
They're a
else.
pretty minor role in the second book.
Yeah, but we know we have.
They disappear off into the rest of the world. And,
But it's such a weird thing.
yeah.
It's just, so it's such a good world building thing
Wait.
of just like throwing you that
Wait.
little.
Wait,
What?
go back. Repeat what you just said.
The Inquisitors, there's...
Just disappear?
No,
Well,
but like
they
disappear from
know-
your view.
Yeah, from this story, basically. So
from this book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
know the Inquisitors are out
Not-
there in other
I thought you were
cities
telling
around.
us about the next book.
No,
a
no,
minute.
no,
I was
no,
like,
no,
are
no,
you
no.
kidding me?
No. We are not giving spoilers. That's not a
No.
spoiler.
I was like, I'm gonna be so mad.
No. They are just, so Marsh comes to says it, and it's just like, come here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, and then they absolutely do nothing there. Like, why would he take him there? No reason. There's nothing given. Then Marsh evaporates from existence, and that's it. But it's such a good move for
Yeah.
your world building
It's
because
so
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Minnesota Nice has taken over. It's so such a good move for world building because it's the second book. We cannot have all the answers, but at least our minds are just like going all the directions and just opening and just ready to receive everything that is coming.
Yeah. I think that's one thing, like, I would really compliment about this book is, like, the things that felt weak in the last book. Like, I think there's a potential in a lot of books that have, like, a really good first book that are working on such a big, what feels like a big scale. Like, they literally, like, it was like they overthrew a deity. You know what I mean? In the first book. And because of that, it felt so big. The scale already felt so big. It's really hard to grow out of that, to, like, live up to the next book. Because the next book can often feel like, this was, like, just wasn't as good as the first. You know what I mean? Like,
less
yeah, like,
interesting. The stakes
we
are
didn't.
lower.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
stakes are lower. The things don't matter as much. Like, it's not even as, like, interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I felt like that was not the case with this book at all. This book felt very much like, okay, we like went really big and now we're even going bigger. And
Yeah.
you know what? There's even more out there and I'm not even going to tell you. You know what I mean? But like little side parts,
Yeah.
like literally framing his book
Yeah.
in, like, we talk with like Betsy all the time about like there
Our
being
professor.
there being like frames to stories.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly what
Yeah,
I thought.
that was
when
a frame.
Marsha
That's true.
appeared at the
That's
end.
true.
I was like, something has been going on and I have been missing it the whole way
Yep.
through. I was like,
Yep.
there's some bigger story happening here, and this little story is taking place in
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but there's something bigger way out
What are you
here.
gonna say?
I completely agree. There's like one or two lines near the end of the first book, I think, where they comment that like, oh well, this is only like 7 Inquisitors. We know there's at least 20 more out there in the rest of the Empire that they know of, and then that's kind of it. The story moves on, comes to a conclusion, and in this one, we vaguely meet Marsh, and there's a couple of comments, a few musings throughout the story of like, oh, what are the rest of the Inquisitors up to? Where are they? Why haven't they come to try to kill us yet? And that's it.
Yeah.
That's like it for the entire
Yeah.
story of the
Yeah.
second
Yeah, it's
book.
like, oh.
And it's easy to just sort of like glaze over that, honestly. And I'm glad you guys pick up on that in the second one, because I'm like halfway through the third, I'm just constantly shocked. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, he already dropped the breadcrumb for this way back, like near the start of the first book or something, It's like, so it's just, it's not until you kind of see the tapestry come together at the end of his whole story that you begin to realize like where he starts like laying the tracks for like this particular question or this particular situation to arise. So you start seeing that more in the second book, but
that's really cool.
Can't wait for the third.
That's really cool.
Stress.
So something that I was gonna add to what you said, Emma, and also you, Skylar, but like, is that this book, in concept, it might seem that the stakes are lower than the first book, because in the first book you have this inconquerable lord ruler, but at the end of the day, these are just people. A war could end with them, and I don't think the book makes it a little thing. It's might be littler than killing the Lord Ruler, but in no sense is a less of a threat. And as we know, a bunch of our favorite characters are dead. So yes, it is a big damn threat, you know. But the cool thing is, you first have your picture, as you say, like the frame. It starts with, this is the big thing that is coming. Inquisitors march, what in the world? And then you get your little story here, and in between you have, being worrying about the deepness. What in the world is that? It's something bigger. It's something that the Lord Ruler himself was scared of. We still don't have it yet. We have, like, all these clues that it is coming, but then you also have your war, your little war, that is not that little after all, because, again, we lose half of our favorite people. So, it's just like, everything is high stakes, but in different levels. So it's enough of a high stake for this book that this war is happening, but you also have, in case that was not enough for you, you have the foreshadowing, or I don't know, foreshadowing, but like indication of there's something bigger. After this war is over, it's just like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I have to deal with this, but I have to deal with this before this other thing comes, you know?
Yeah, and I think as well, like, plausibility, right? Like, so how crazy would it actually go after they kill? Like, what's the next really big thing that you can, like, they're not just gonna lurch themselves into some giant war with some larger enemy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not what, like, it's not plausible for the story to happen that way. What is plausible is for there to be, like, warring lords and everyone trying to vie for the throne, like a power, you know what I mean,
power
struggle.
vacuum.
Yeah,
Power
exactly.
vacuum.
And that makes a lot of sense for the story, and I think they do a really good job of making it seem like a really, like, both a plausible event happening and also, like, reasonable threat. Like, it's not just like a little, like, oh, we know Ellen's gonna win and take the throne, you know what I mean? And it does not happen the way that you think it's gonna happen either. Like, I was like, surely he won't. Nope. Okay, he's not king. Goodbye, sir. Like,
it's like,
you're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and like, I think that makes it, like, it does make the stakes feel higher, because it's not like, it's for sure not happening in the way that you think it's gonna be happening. And it doesn't just feel like, okay, Sanderson, we know you're gonna let Ellen become a good king, and then he's gonna just keep the throne by some miracle, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like that. It's like, oh, everything's falling apart. Everything actually is falling apart.
All the time.
Will.
I'm just like, as if I have a bunch of, like, Legos, and they're like, and I'm like, they're all time just trying
when
to
you
keep
knock
it
the
together.
Jenga tower over and you try to hold it and it still comes apart.
You're just like, but it's like falling slowly apart, and some people hold it, and you're just
Over
like, no.
500 pages and it's still falling.
That's another thing, is like, I felt like this book had a very similar arc to the first one, in which there is, like, slow building tension, but details matter. And all of these little details, like, clued, like, yesterday we were discussing how, this is a different area, but how, like, the twist of the Kandra being the traitor instead of, like, somebody else in the crew. And then
so good. It was just the perfect.
I was so frustrated, because I was like, a little part of me at first when I read that, I was like, how didn't I suspect that? You know what I mean? I was like, I'm so dumb.
So this is the hilarious thing, right? It's been so long since I've read them before.
You didn't know?
Who the traitor was. Because I only remembered one Kandra. And so I was like, oh yeah, I remember this bit with the wolf. And I was like, oh yeah, Captain Demu is the traitor. And then I got, like, told, like, 2/3 of the way through, and I was like, wait, I forgot. And so then I just couldn't believe it. I mean, my memory, sometimes having a bad memory is very awesome.
Yeah, that's great that you were able to experience that again.
The shock, like,
with this I'm gonna jump to plot, because that's kind of like the plot of the book. You should just have said confidently, like Ellen, you should have been like, yes, it is, and then suffer the consequences like a king.
Yeah, and have you yell at me for an hour and a half while recording?
That's the consequence. That's the danger of being in leadership.
I will choose wisdom. Thank you.
I heard a criticism about the plot, and is that there was so much that it was uncomfortable to feel, like, go through all the little, there were like too many little things happening all the time that it just bothered them while they were reading it. So one again thing is the Inquisitors, and another thing is the war with these people, but another thing is character, the Ellen and Vin, and also Vin trying to find the traitor, and also Sazed trying to understand the plaque, and so like he was just like all these little. She it was a girl. She was saying like all these moving pieces were uncomfortable, and she was like, it's not because I'm dumb and I cannot follow them, which would be my first answer. But she clarified that's not the reason. What she was saying is that so much was happening that it didn't go deep enough into all of the things happening, basically.
Yeah.
Did you feel bothered?
Sure.
The question will be, you can keep going on, but like you can start with saying, did you feel that uncomfortable, and why or why not?
No.
Okay.
Is the simple answer. I think I can understand what she's getting at, but to me it's sort of like, pick your battle. Do you want a nuanced, complex world with intriguing interactions, like genuine motivations and like actual difficulties for the characters to experience? Or do you want an ABC, just follow your leader kind of plot where the characters are led by the author through the events of the story without any kind of dynamic events happening? So,
yes.
Yeah, you can't have, like, Vin can't be having a deep internal battle with herself and questioning her role as, like, Ellen's, well, girlfriend still, and or, you know, as an assassin or as a street urchin or as a lady. Like, should she allow herself to be used or not in these roles if she's not already doing those roles? You know, she's playing the assassin in the dark. She's playing, you know, Ellen's woman, you know, the love interest of the king. Like, she has, like, public figure authority. She's got the religious aspect going on. And so all of those things allow Sanderson to show the internal struggle and strife within her.
Yeah.
If they didn't exist, it'd just be like, oh, she's just having, like, a internal balance. Like, well, why?
Yeah.
You know, it suddenly it all falls apart and feels hollow. So yeah, you can't have the complexity without the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I also feel like it's so simplistic to be like, it's like too much to follow, because here's the thing is, if you did less, you would feel like the world is lacking still.
Yeah,
You
like
would
it's
feel
shallow.
like, you would feel like the story wasn't as plausible. You would feel like it's just silly. Like, even take away small things, like, I don't know, like the whole what's her name, Alrianne. You know what I mean? Like, that like develops Breeze, and Breeze is such a random side character. It feels like most of the time, but it's also like, it's actually kind of important. And I have a lot more attachment to Breeze now, and I'm scared for where this is going, because I feel the, like, foreshadowing, and I'm like, don't do it to me, don't do it to me. Like, I feel it, you know what I mean? And I think, like, all of those little details, you know what I mean? Or, like, even Alrianne got, Set Ket to, like, come back. Like,
Set, yeah.
Yeah, like,
did you
all
say
of
Set or
those
Ket?
little...
I would say Set.
I said Set.
Yeah, Set. All of those little details matter, because you've got, like, actual plot developing at the end, you know what I mean, like, through that. And I think, like, that's important. I think as well, like, for people who enjoy fantasy, like, it also depends on, like, what your main genre is, what you're looking for, right? Like, if you are a person who enjoys, like, just, like, really quick-paced action mystery thriller sorts of things, like, I don't think this is for you. This is a slower burn than that. You know what I mean? Like,
a slower burn, but at the same time, a lot of things are slowly burning.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, it's just more intricate, is what I would say. And so, like, it's more like you have to be able to follow the tapestry and not get lost in all the little different threads of it, and be able to start, like, really piecing some ideas together.
Yeah.
And, like, I think Sanderson doesn't insult your intelligence by being like, you can't handle all these little moving pieces that seem very obscure.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be more annoying to me if he didn't do that, and then we would be like,
100%.
okay, but like...
And when the reveals did happen later on, in this, either in this or the third book, and he hadn't set the groundwork, it either feel rushed or unjustified.
Yeah.
And so, or he'd have to just axe completely, like, a whole, like,
characters
or plot twists out,
Yes.
which would undermine so much of his world building.
Yep.
So it's either don't do the world building and make a narrower story where you have less of that complexity, or you broaden your story and allow all of that to happen. And the challenge, and I think what Sanderson particularly nails in this and the third one, is the timing of the reveals. Like, we kind of touched on it with Marsh and the Inquisitors, but it's like, well, why drop that piece right at the start of this book if he's never going to pay it off? It's like, well, because he will. It's just, you just got to give it 700 more pages.
Yeah. I think as well,
700 more pages.
people feel like second books are such, like, a bridge book, you know what I mean? That, like, sometimes, like, I heard you say, like, earlier, like, one of the critiques against it is, like, it's supposed to just, like, well, it's not supposed to, but it feels
only
just
like a
getting you over
bridge.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel that way at all. And I feel like part of the reason it's not that way is because of all those intricate little pieces. And, like, some of them are finishing in this book. Like, there are character lines that are finishing in this book. There are things that are going on. You know what I mean? Like,
but as one starts, another stops.
Yes, exactly.
Like, Sazed, most of the way through this story...
Oh, my heart. There's
Let's
something, like, sinks in my chest when you say that.
I know. But he feels like a kind of complete character. He kind of almost feels like, oh, this is Sanderson's tool to, like, explore the ancient prophecies and the mysteries a little bit.
Yeah.
But him as a character is like, well, okay, whatever. And then, oh my gosh, right as by the time you finish the book, you realize some of these other character storylines are ending because they get killed. In that moment, Sazed stops.
Yeah.
Well, and, like...
I don't know if Sazed starts. For me, Sazed dies there. He doesn't die, but, like, for me, at least so far, till we know, Sazed just...
So
but there's something I was gonna say, an image that just came to my mind, was when you go to a magician to see some tricks, right?
Yep.
It's crazy because, I don't know if you have seen, like, these shows, these talent shows that they come, and they're like, can you choose a card here? Can you do? And they're just, like, doing this random stuff, and you're entertained. You're like, okay, they're choosing the card, they're putting the hat here, and everyone is just doing things that call people from the public, and they're just, like, from the audience, and they're just, like, doing random stuff that make no sense until all of a sudden it's punch, 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 and you were so distracted by all the little things happening, it just made no sense. Why are all these things happening? And they all come together to be a great master show, and I feel that that's what is happening here. You have all these little things coming, and you're like, okay, this is here, and there's a traitor, and there's this, oh, the bones were found, and then this, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden, the last 100 pages come and it's like, bah, 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 you're like, ah! You don't even have time to cry because all is just coming at you.
Yeah. In addition with, like, the keeping all the different plot lines going, I feel like as well, you need something to get you, like, you need all the little things if you want to actually get through it. You know what I mean? Because, like, I feel like then the accusations about it becoming a bridge book would be so true. Because then you would just, like, imagine if we were just following this book and we were just really strictly watching
only Ellen and all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that would be really boring. And if there was nothing else going on with, like, the religious stuff, if it's just, like, okay, the deepness kind of disappears into the ether and we don't know anything else about it, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, think about all those little things, or, like, even small things, like, the development of, like, the crew members, like Dachshund, his, like, it felt so tragic, you know what I'm saying? Like, like, that was needed. I needed to feel the tragedy of Dachshund, because it's not plausible for me to go on thinking that he was just like, da 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 da, because Dachshund lost his best friend. Like,
his whole family,
his best friend.
And his dreams, a lot of the reason he fought in the first place.
Yes, exactly. Like, the devolving of his character a bit felt like the unravel of Dachshund was just, like, tragic and needed.
Yeah.
Like, because it also makes you feel, like, the reality of like, political turmoil. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I feel like all those little details, you need them because they also like impact our main characters. You know what I mean? Anyways.
Yeah. So I gave, well, we didn't say what I gave world building 5 out of 5. I gave plot 5 out of 5. You guys?
Oh yeah. Look. If you hear a criticism from me on this book, this whole video, it's going to surprise me as well.
Wait. Before you say what you gave, I do have a criticism on the plot.
Okay.
I do have one little thing that I didn't like. I heard this criticism somewhere else too, and that's the only thing I could agree with them. And it was that, maybe you guys can change my mind, but it was that the situation with the spy, that was great. Perfect for this book. It just made so much to the plot. The fact that it was a Kandra, oh my goodness, clap, 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 clap. Okay, great. But I think it fell to the sides sometimes. I think that was something very, very urgent, and it was not. Sometimes I'm like, why are we just doing nothing? Why are we not looking for this traitor? And if you would have said Vin is the only one who knows it, we know that Vin is a little crazy, so like it's okay. But if there were other people that knew that there was a traitor and they were still too passive and too comfortable with it, I think it should have been more. Maybe not. It was a little hard to do things to try to find it. So I know that it wasn't that easy to find the traitor. It was just, although the spy. It was. I think it should have been more present in the conversations, more present in the we should have said that, and like it just fell to the sides until it was brought up, and then it just disappeared and it was brought up. So I don't know. What do you think?
I wish he had done more with that because it felt like, oh, we're just gonna hunt them down one by one now. You know what I mean? Like I do actually agree with that. That is one of my things. The other thing that I would bring up about plot is like, I won't even try to convince you out of that one. I also felt that way. I feel like that he just didn't do as much with it as I was hoping to do with it, but I feel like the twist at the end of who it was enough to like distract me from the fact that he didn't use that as much as I wish he had. And so I will forgive him for that.
I forgave him.
I think I do. I actually. Amazing. I just said I wouldn't critique it. I actually agree with that. But I would say, I think the reason he keeps it a little smaller scale, doesn't emphasize it, doesn't allow it to sort of like occupy a lot of like the active like dialogue time between the characters, is because it's not the kind of spy it is. It's a very personal one. He's a spy for Zane, and is really all that Zane is caring about is the dynamic between him and Vin. And so it kind of keeps the betrayal is like urgent, but it's essentially just
they don't know that though.
No, they don't. So I agree, and I think that's why the criticism is valid. But I can understand why Sanderson chose not to overemphasize it
or do more with
it, because then I think people would be like, oh wait, that's it. Like the city's not getting betrayed. Like a gate's not being opened. Like wait, what? It's just.
Right,
I think a good way of having fixed that was simply being a couple people mentioning why in the world is this spy doing nothing. So literally just a couple of mentions of how like, oh my goodness, has he done something? And having like put up that question. And then another way would be at the end, say like, oh, that's why he was doing nothing. He just didn't care about the city actually because he was saying spy.
It wasn't Straff's spy. Making that more obvious.
So so that's something that happens again in the first book. There are some things that then you're like, okay, that makes sense. It would have been good to point out the situation that this was not making sense, so that I knew that the author knew that it was not making sense, you know. So sometimes I'll just a couple of pointers, but it's not a big deal. I maybe with that I can put my plot in 4.99. No, 4.9. I would put my plot 4.9. Yeah, it's just very small.
Can I bring up one?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so for world building, I would definitely give it 5 out of 5.
Okay.
Like, I think that's a good category. Like, I felt like it just did a good job. Also, I just love stories that have like deep religious. Like, you know, like when a world doesn't have religion, it's like, but that's not believable because our world has religion. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel as reasonable to me.
And people always find something to worship, right?
Yeah, and he points that out. How can a religion come out of thin air? Exactly. Not thin air, but like almost.
Yeah, I know exactly. Anyways, the other thing about plot, and we've already discussed this a little bit, but I feel like you'll maybe have more opinions on it.
Definitely.
That's always it.
Is the fact that they made Elend a Mistborn felt
perfect. No, it was perfect!
Because
It was perfect!
I've been thinking about
Perfect!
this.
Perfect! Perfect!
Hear me out. Hear me out.
Sorry.
I feel like Elend is. I understand why he did it. Because how are you going to have a third book where you have this one character who is completely honestly incapable of fighting anything? Like, it becomes really like, it's becoming progressively
it's
weirder
pressing.
and weirder that he's living. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, why isn't he dead yet? This kid is like, he's grown up hampered. He's like, he has no self-preservation skills. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So, like, it makes sense for the storyline that he's, like, become that.
Yeah.
But what I feel is weird about it is, like, the timing of that reveal felt a little off and weird to me. Just maybe because I felt like
our friendship is in danger right now.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Hear me out.
I'm here.
The thing is I felt like it was very convenient timing. You know what I mean? And now I'm open to hearing other opinions about that it was less convenient and it was more particular than that. But it felt like a little convenient. I wish there was a little more build up. Like, I wish this had been something that was maybe a bit more of like a hint. Like, you know what I mean?
That this
like,
may happen.
Even tiny amounts, like a little bit earlier, because it would have felt more believable when it actually happened. But it felt very much like, to me at least, it was pulled out of thin air.
Oh, I love that you bring that up, because that was one of my favorite things. I just clapped standing up after crying and rolling in my bed as if I was being like demon possessed. I think it was just perfect, but it's good that you bring it up because it can be seen. I totally actually get it. That you might have saw it like, oh, it seems to be out of thin air. Two things I would say. One, I like the fact that he was not a Mistborn at the beginning. So that's a positive thing, is that it came at the end, because I loved the fact that he, and maybe this goes to character, but like, just giving my reasons why I did like it. I love the fact that he was built, like his manliness came without the Mistborn thing, because you see the difference between him and Zane being a Mistborn and such a strong, attractive man.
Okay, this
that's going to characters. Okay, we're gonna get there. But the point is that you see the difference between this man that has all this power and all this ability, and is so lacking inside, and then this other guy that he has no abilities physically and is so strong inside, but still needs so much to be like helped with. So Twindle just builds a man out of him, and Rip, and then when he comes to become a Mistborn, it's almost as if he gained it. Like he became that Mistborn because he became strong inside before he was strong outside.
Okay, yeah.
The other thing is that it is proper that he became a Mistborn in that place. He wasn't just like randomly like, ton, Mistborn fall into me. It was from the Well of Ascension, and we haven't learned that much about it, but what we know is that Mistborns and like Allomancy came after, like through the Well of Ascension. So the fact that whoever that...
I actually kind of missed that.
Yeah, so
that's where the Lord Ruler became.
Yeah, that's where he became an Allomancer. So like you have him at this place, and then it's not like Vin was like, "Oh, look at this bead here." Is bead that you said or bed? Bead. Okay.
Bead.
Look at this bead here. Let's see what happens if I put it in his mouth. Yeah, just like, oh, maybe this is from the Lord Ruler that made beasts more. Like, no, it is a whole like ghost thing.
Maybe I was too sad to
pay attention to
what was happening.
Yeah.
So you have this ghost that is literally like put the thing in his mouth. So you still do not know who the ghost is, who the thing is. So whatever, at least it can feel like a little bit out of thin air, but you know that there's an explanation. It's not only this happened. There is gonna be a reason why this is happening.
That makes it feel a bit more reasonable to me. I still feel like a little bit it was like not disingenuous, but just a tiny bit. You know what I mean? Like just like okay, it felt a little.
He was
odd,
killed, so that's proper.
I am like glad that makes it make more sense why there wasn't like foreshadowing on that happening, because I didn't understand. I was in so much shock and tears. I'm standing there, I'm folding laundry, and I'm just like, my mouth keeps opening. I'm just like and I'm just like tears, and then eventually I'm not even folding laundry anymore. I'm sitting on my bed and I'm just staring. I'm like, no! And So, maybe I missed a couple of things.
So I agree with Melanie. I think there is sufficient foreshadowing, but it's the same kind as like Marsh at the start of this book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he drops a couple vague mentions, and it's like theorizing. I think it says it as like, there's records, no records show allomancy before the Lord Ruler's time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really small things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the kind of moment where it's not in and of itself supposed to be a conclusion, but I'm not entirely sure if this is in the second or the third, I apologize, but Vin at some point wonders, why was there still a bead left?
Okay, we don't know that yet.
Okay.
But that's gonna come, and we maybe
that's the thing.
take that off.
It's supposed to be a beginning of a new mystery.
Yes.
He's laying tracks for something else to be revealed later, rather than just like, I've already built this up and concluded it.
And
so that's probably
I guess,
why you would feel that like, where's this coming from?
I'm
Because
just
it's
the
right at the
stupid
end
person.
of a book. Right?
No, you're not
I'm
stupid.
just the stupid person who can't follow all the little
Okay,
thoughts.
but this is the thing. There are too many little thoughts to follow them up. But like, there's the other thing is that the ghost was the one who killed Ellen, and this is the thing. The ghost has been good. Like, what is this ghost doing? Is he actually evil? And like, he has been particularly good to Ellen, and Ellen was just like, I can trust this person, this thing, and he kills him with the intention, it seems, that Vian is gonna save him, and then she is gonna she's gonna take the power for herself, not release the thing. So that's why he kills him, because he doesn't want to actually kill him. He doesn't want him dead. So it's not like Ellen came with his wound. It's not like Marsh hit Ellen and then like, okay, let's try to save Ellen. Now it's like this ghost had all these possibilities in mind. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna kill him, and says Evin is obviously gonna save him. Vin doesn't, and he's like, oh shoot, the Vin. So it's just like it's not a random. It's not a random that he is injured.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense to me. I had kind of forgot that the Lord, like, there was an allomancy before that whole thing went down. I was, like, in my brain, I was thinking of it as more of, like, an awakening of latent powers already. And so that's why I was struggling with it, because I was, like, I felt like there wasn't enough, like, build-up to that particular event.
He didn't snap. It was the bead itself.
That makes a lot more sense, though. But I would have also even believed a little argument for the snap theory. Like, if he had snapped, I would have been like, well, Zane, that's what happened to Zane. You know what I mean? Like, so that would make sense. But I'm okay. I can accept that. Okay, then you know what? Maybe plot is 5 out of 5.
For me, it's 5 out of 5. Well, yeah. 4.99. No, 5 out of 5. Okay, let's move to characters. So we have still yet the two greatest ones are characters and emotional impact. Let's go to emotional impact first, because that's just a little shorter. And it's gonna flow to characters, because like as the whole book is just as the whole book is just character driven. The biggest emotional impacts are the characters being unalived or not on that, or growing as a strong character. So I will ask you both, what was your most impactful thing that happened that just...
Oh man.
Sorry, Skylar.
Do you want to go first or me?
Sure. Gosh, I think the bit, I mean, this is probably what everyone's gonna say, but the bit that gets me the most is Sazed and Tindwall. It breaks my heart. Knowing that was coming ahead of time did not make it easier to read. I got to the end of the chapter where they finally, like, embrace, and then the attack starts on Luthadel. And I was like, it was like 11 p.m. and I looked at the next chapter and I was like, nope. I'm not, because I knew if I started reading it then, not only would it just destroy me, but I also wouldn't finish the book till like 3 in the morning. So I was like, this can wait for the next day.
We both were reading The Hero of Ages. We had our little reading party at Emma's last night, and we were both reading The Hero of Ages. One of our friends was reading the Well of Ascension, the last parts.
We're like getting live reactions.
Yeah. We were getting here like, oh no! Zane! He kissed her! And I'm just like, yeah, that's like SA. That's what is happening. Yeah, well, okay.
Okay, I love
Okay.
Not there yet. Not there yet.
Okay, fine.
We're getting there. I have an issue with villains with that story, a compelling story, and when they're attractive. But well, the point is that
We'll never be able to.
wait. So we were getting like live reactions, but the point is that I had to leave, and it was too late already. And I went, and I'm like, let me see where you're at. And I read a line, and I knew that she was getting close to fine Swindle, and literally my eyes watered, and I look at it, and I'm like, I'm sorry, and
The worst part about that.
she still didn't have idea that was coming, but I knew. What were you gonna say?
The worst part about that whole thing is that you know it's coming, and I don't think Sanderson even tries to mask it.
No.
Like he's like, no, this is gonna happen. It's just
I
gonna
had
really,
hope.
really hurt.
I had hope.
Like I was sitting there and I was like, she's not gonna make it. Like there's no way. I was like, I knew some people were about to die, but I wasn't prepared for which ones. I was shocked by Club's death. I was like genuinely shocked by it. I was like, oh, it just felt so like the death felt like the way it was like done felt as brutal as like the like shearing off, like it just felt so sad. And then I felt like really like Dachshund also had that like more tragic, and you know what I mean, where he's like trying to grasp all of the people and like something had to work, something had to have worked, and it just doesn't, and it's so sad. Like each of them felt like they had very fitting ends in that way, and I felt like Twindle, I just was like, oh.
It's crazy that they didn't even give us her story. She just was found dead, and her skin was cold. I remember that line, and her skin was cold, and I'm just...
No, I actually cried so much when that happened. But I loved her, and I loved what was going on between her and Sazed, and I loved how complex their relationship was. Yeah. I love that it goes beyond, like, just the, like, traditional romance, if that makes sense. Sazed is my favorite character. I'll just lay my cards on the table. Sazed is my favorite character.
Sazed.
And the fact that he was, like, just so, like... the fact that he was like, she so loved me, like she like still, and then the next thing that happens to her is she's dead. Like, and I feel like he even knows it. Like deep in his soul somewhere, as he's looking, he's like, please no, because he just knows it's coming.
He knew the moment he chose to hold the gate.
Yeah. It's just...
Okay, I need to read this because this is so sad. This is like their last interaction. And like she's hugging him, and oh my goodness, and she says to him, "Do you know why I love you, Zazit? I cannot fathom," he answered honestly. I
cannot
and she loved him even though he didn't think he was lovable. He says that you are very lovable. I love him forever, but it was just, that little moment was just so sweet, and they're hugging, and he's just like receiving this love, because it's also, you see him, these characters, but emotional impact is that she's dead. And that is horrible.
Emotional impact. She's dead. None of this, you're all horrible.
That is impactful. That was how I felt it.
Yeah.
I honestly, that was crazy as it sounds, was not in the moment how I experienced the biggest car. The biggest emotional impact was for me actually the whole last fight with Ellen and Vin going there and Zazed and Marsh there. Like I was scared to death that they were gonna kill Zazed. I'm just like, okay, no one is safe here. Everyone's gonna die. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I think in that battle so many catastrophes were going on. Because first Zazed is almost done and Marshall is gonna kill him, but he has the metal inside of him, so he's gonna draw power from it, and he's just like fighting, and there's just like, yes, you get him, and then you go downstairs, and Ellen is dying on the, like, first he was coming close to the thing, and I'm just like, no, don't, come, I was like, I'm literally in this bed, yelling my heart out. My neighbors were about to call the police, I'm sure, and I'm just like, no, and then he goes and I'm like, no! And then Ellen is gonna and then Vin goes to the power, and I'm just like, take the power for yourself, be selfish, and then she's like, oh, he wanted to, like what Seiza told him, like you have to learn to love him as and enough to let him like decide, and I'm just like, no, don't love him enough. So I was going crazy, but when they said that, I'm just like, yeah, this is that. He said, like, I was sure he was dead, and after they killed Kelsier, that for me was just impossible, like, something unexplicable. I'm like, they're gonna kill, like, he's dead, he's dead. And then when he was not, and then he was a miserable, and I'm like, there were too many things happening here, you know? I was just too impacted.
Yeah.
So I think that's my biggest emotional impact.
I feel like...
What is yours?
Okay, Sazed, Tyndall line aside, I love that. I loved that plot line.
Hated
so much. I think, I don't know if it's my first. Maybe this is just like alongside of it. But I did feel like one of the things that I felt was like really weird and like emotional was when the whole fight with like when they get married is such a random scene.
That's so weird.
Like, that whole
she's like naked. She's even like naked with like holding her breast.
That whole chunk,
so uncomfortable.
Right? When you're like, she goes from this weird fight, and there's definitely like weird sexual undertones to that. Obviously, he kisses her. It's just like it's weird. It's uncomfortable. It's bad.
And it is. I think it was sexual assault because you see then after when say Ellen's father Straff saw his woman that she was like with Cots. It means that they had a relationship. So I think that was enough to put together that that's what was happening there. But
I agree. It's like it's so
disgusting.
But I felt like that whole scene of like her being betrayed by Orsier and then having what's his Tensoon? Is that it? Yeah, Tensoon.
It was the opposite. Orsier was the one that died, and Tensoon was the one that betrayed her. Yeah.
So Tensoon betrayed her, and watching how like that whole thing went down was like I felt like it was like emotionally impactful because it was like a lot of confirmation of a lot of things for Vin.
Yeah.
And then to like choose Ellen and like so forcefully like be there, be ready, and be like, this is what I'm walking into. Like I know what I am walking into, and like. At first I was like, she's gonna like come back and regret her decision, but she like instantly regretted it, and I appreciated that. I felt like that was like, I don't know, all of these like different little things where she was like, she took his hand and she realized she was like, I've made the wrong choice. You know what I mean? Like I think like all of these little things I felt like were building and building and building. I felt like this is it in contrast to like Sazed's plot line. I feel like this was like a high point of like Vin coming to know herself and know what she wants in this world, and that was like something that I still felt was like unresolved from the first book even. And I think that was like a high point emotionally, if that makes sense. I just that whole like and choosing to seek to save Tensoon even as he had betrayed her is like
what a change from the first book.
Like that made Vin very like I love her so much. I respect you now because I feel like you've gotten a sense of what it truly means to like love and trust people. Like
in that moment, she sort of replicates Kelsier, right?
Yeah. It's
really good.
It's a good high point of the book after all of and then all of the ensuing chaos and sadness and tears and you know
there was so much.
Sanderson gives us a little crumb of like goodness and hope before he's like.
What if I take it away? What if I use this hope to destroy yours?
Exactly.
But it was good. Sorry, one more thing that I feel like you guys probably have opinions on is like Sazed's whole arc, not just like him being in love and being lovable, but him being a man of consequence because that's something that she loved about him, and that he like isn't the sort of man to see bad people doing things and sit by. He is the sort of man to say. He's like flexible in a certain sense, but he's like, I want to change something. Like, this is not good. And like, that is like such an admirable thing that he comes to terms with. And I think it really shines in the beginning of the battle when he's finally like, no one's gonna save these people. I have to, like, I am not a warrior. I'm not a warrior. I don't get involved in these things. But I shouldn't even be here. But someone needs to protect these people. And I was like, that's good. I was like, that's, I was like, yes.
And again, that goes, before I comment on that, because, like, we're gonna, that's going to on characters, and I think we can just go on characters now.
No, you guys have to read the third book.
We are. I'm reading it already. I'm, like, page, like, 100-ish already, so.
I'm not that far. I'm, like, page 50, but.
Well, you started yesterday. I started, like, 2 days ago. But, okay, so, let's go to characters. That is the biggest part of this whole thing. If you thought that we have been talking for too long, okay, we have. But yes, you I think you'll have time. This will cut for your studying a little bit because it's still not 12, and we just have characters.
Okay.
Then it's a long part, but not like
We're getting better at this. We're getting
like
faster.
a whole 2 hours thing. Okay, so characters. This is my favorite part. It's the biggest thing on the book, and let's just grab them one at a time. I'll start with Kandra, the Kandra Tensun. That is, just to go from the not lesser, but just less complicated to the most complicated. But like, Tensun is such a cool character because he starts as not even having a personality. Like, I thought Kandras couldn't have a personality when everything that they would answer was just like, oh yeah, if you want me to think that, then I'll think it. It's just so cool, and I just thought, well, that's how they are. There's no way of changing that dynamic. They are not thinking beings. And then getting to know him as very, very, very deeply thinking being that was just constrained with everything that his contract had and his hate for humans. So it's such a complex relationship where you have a human that already hates, not a human, a being that already hates humans, and a human that doesn't think of Kandras as people, as like someone that deserves the same respect and just like as a person. And then he's not even hers. He's just a fake contract follower. So, well, at least of her contract that he didn't have. Okay, a spy. So, the point is that just that setting of the relationship gave so much room to when he just little by little started becoming a person, or at least in our eyes, he started opening and trusting and loving her. So, what do you guys think about him?
Tensun's great.
Go ahead.
I adore Tensun's character.
Yeah.
When I finally did remember that he was the spy and had killed Orsa, I was immediately struck by how different he sounds. It's actually, Sanderson does it. It's both obvious and subtle. It's like, it's crazy. It's this, it's one of those things that's like, without the piece of information, you just glaze over it. He's just talking, and you don't think anything of it. The minute you get that piece of information and you reread, particularly their early conversations, right after they find the bones, it's like night and day difference in dialogue.
Wow, okay. Have to read it again.
It's so well
too.
done. But even with that, like, it's not, you don't immediately sense the difference because he's much more dynamic with Vin in how he talks. But he consistently falls back on the if you command me to, which Orsa kind of did. But he'll like he uses that to defend himself only at the end of the conversation. So he allows the interaction to happen, and then only when he feels like he's beginning to cross the line or gets worried, then then he cuts it off. And it's just such a small change in how they interact, but it sets the ground for, like you said, that continually growing relationship. Couldn't happen with Orsa. Never would have happened. Yeah. But Tensun's like the kind of conjure that he's just a little more interested, a little more curious.
Just like Cesar was as a terrorisman too, as a keeper.
Exactly.
He was also a little bit out of line from what he was supposed to be in. But still, Bean plays such a big role in taking him out of there.
Yes.
And that's another reason why I respect her and love her. And she was the one who didn't trust at the beginning, and now the roles have changed, and now she's
trying to get someone to trust.
Yeah, exactly.
She realizes how horrible life is if you don't love anyone. You know what I mean? If you don't trust or love anybody, like, your life is sad. Like, you don't want to live it. You don't want to be living it. That's what happens. And yeah, I think that's, like, honestly, I just love that thematically, you know what I mean? Like, that transition. I also felt like, particularly for the character, you know what I mean? Like, it feels really interesting because it also opens up a whole other, like, this ties into world building and so many other things. But, like, his character, his character, like, opens up whole worlds of things that were like, oh, okay, so they have this thing going on with the Lord Ruler, and they're like,
this contract, what is that?
Yeah, what is going on? And then there's also this layer of, like, not just, like, the world building, but then also, like, her individual relationship of, like, of course she would find the one that's, like, slightly off, slightly more, like, little bit more out on the fringes, you know what I mean? Like, of course, like, Vin would be, like, that with...
And then exploit that, because, again, another person would not have gotten what they got out of him. It wasn't only that he was more propense to a little bit more rebelliousness, he was also very strict, and we'll see that more maybe in the third book.
Yeah.
But like he was also a more strict character, Kandra, but he had that little thing inside of him, and then being with her, his mind changed of, actually, they are not horrible people. They can be just like us inside. And I just love that. I also love that he broke the contract not once, not twice, but like 3 times. Like first, he broke the contract when he was helping her when there was the attack when the assassins came, and he beat one of them so that she could fight back. And then that was the first time that he broke the contract. The second time was when he told her about like the 2 things. Like he told her about the thing.
Well, he didn't explicitly tell her, but he basically gave her the information necessary to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then the third time was when he betrayed Zane.
Yeah. So it's just so, again, cool to see the rules breaking, not because we want you guys to break the rules, but because, I don't know, those things were not okay. And seeing how people, they cannot fit in those little boxes that they were put in, and especially him just broke out of those because of faithfulness to the person that actually deserved faithfulness. Like, I don't know if you have met this type of people, but I have, and it's so annoying, that are just like, oh no, we cannot do that, and they will never go out of the little rules that they have in their minds because they are like more moral than you are, and in their big morality, it's true, in their big morality, they will not go out of their way to help you. And I think that's how the Kandra were, and him going out of the way to help her, he didn't use the excuse of, oh, this is my contract. No, he loved her more than that. He appreciated her more than that, so.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think as well, like, something that I think is really funny, just as, like, a side note, is, like, the little, like, comments where she is like, I want you to know that, like, I actually want your opinions and ideas, and then mirroring, it's also interesting, like, there's weird dynamics going on with all of these others, if you will, because Terra's men are treated less than human, the Koloss are treated less than human, the Kandra...
Probably fairly
yeah, but, like, it's interesting, though, at least to spark a conversation, like, one of the things that they desire deeply is, like, we are humans, we're going to become you. Like, that, creepy.
Serious.
I threw down the book, I was like, this is creepy, this is stressful.
Yeah.
But, like, I think in a completely flipped, mirrored sort of way, with the Kandra, you have two beings coming to recognize each other as other, and recognize that there's still something shared and in common there. And, like, both deserving of, like, care and admiration and respect and trust and love. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is, like, a really important thing that happens with Tensoon, is, like, he just realizes, like, oh, there's more people than just this one man who has, like, or, you know,
who's just the worst.
Yes, who's just, like, literally deranged man. Okay, can we go into Zane?
Yes, let's go into Zane.
we need to vent.
Okay, so I would say this. I will put this on the table first. I have a problem with villains that are attractive. Like, when I saw Avatar The Last Airbender, like, come on, Zuko?
That's not even the
Zuko? Wait, but he was the evil one. Well, I love him, okay? And then I was in love with him, and then he became good, okay? But he was the villain, okay? And I already understood him, because he was, like, rejected by his father. Okay, there was a story, hear him out. And then I also love Victor from Arcade. I was in love with Victor, and he's actually the evil one-ish. And then with this one, I did like Zane. I like him until that last scene. What wasn't he? He was interesting. He was, like, so dark, and he had, like, I love that character came into scene.
I feel like, yes, but I feel like there is something, like, here's the difference that I feel like with Victor and with Zuko. I feel like Zane, almost the whole way through, almost the entire way through,
but you didn't know that at first. That's what I'm saying. It's like, he started being a self-seeking character with potential. You just have to look at the potential.
I mean, I felt like he had some potential. Like, I wasn't completely, you know what I mean? But, like, I do feel like progressively watching his interactions with people and things and what he was doing made me feel very much, like, the voice in his head made me feel like, okay, you are you are not going to be able to break free of this, I don't think.
Yeah, but
Like,
I immediately knew he was not crazy. Like, when it says, like, that was, like, a plot twist, it was cool, but I actually knew that was probably gonna come. I'm like, I don't think this is him being insane. I think something has been whispering to him and messing up with him. But the point is that I love him all throughout. Why? Because he, one, didn't kill Bean when he was literally capable of killing her from the beginning. He could have killed her. And he didn't. And it was really cool to see him and all the potential that he had. The problem was that he didn't end up there. So he was the mess up at the end. So I hate him at the end. That's true. I hate him at that scene. I was just like, okay, done with you. But I did like him at the beginning. And every time he would come. And this is another reason why I think I like him. I just felt that Ellen was such a wimp. Such a non-man. That when Zane would come. So they...
Yeah.
And it's cool, like what I said at the beginning, this contrast of them, these doubles, they are definitely doubles, they are brothers, they look alike, they are the same height, they're like, yeah. So they are as doubles as two characters can be. So at the beginning, I admire more Zane, because he was more bold, more just manly and strong, and just had his own voice. Ellen was just there like, oh, whatever you want, man. Like, he's just taken away by the wind, and whoever wants can come and tell him what to do. He's taken away from the position of kingship because he's a wimp. And Zane is here like, no, nobody's gonna tell me what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm not gonna be controlled. So I think I admire that on him compared to Ellen being a wimp.
I felt that. I felt it, but, like, I also didn't ever feel comfortable with Zane in that way. Like, I think that's the difference, maybe, is, like, I felt that pull of, like, he is showing signs of things that I wish Ellen was doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I felt that pull, but I also felt like there was a deeper, like, undertone of, like, his casual aura surrounding, like, killing and, like, treating other people in certain ways, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that really just, like, it told me that something was, like, different about him in a way that was, like, beyond just he's troubled by this voice in his head. It made me feel like, I don't think it's just the voice in his head. I think he actually has, like, moral failing within.
Yeah.
And the fact he has to cut his arms to ignore the voice, it's like, well, that voice is clearly affecting you more than it should. Like, it's one thing to just hear someone say, oh, you should kill him. It's like, okay. But then to have to physically scar yourself to not act on that impulse.
Yeah.
Well,
says a lot more about Zane than it does about the voice, in a way.
Well, yeah, but you have people that are suffering from mental issues that cut themselves to get away from the pain. So I think that is reflecting something like that.
Yeah, I feel like...
Similar, because it wasn't only like a voice, random voice, something in him. So he thought he was crazy. He didn't think it was just a voice. He thought he himself was.
I feel like
that's true.
What was more interesting is, like, he hates his father, individual of, like, separate of this voice. He hates his father so deeply, rightly so. He's a horrible man. But then he, like, feeds off of that. Like, he just allows that to, like, kind of propel him through his life almost, and, like, that's his driving force. Because, like, the other thing is, like, he hasn't killed himself because of this voice, which, not that that's a good solution either. Like, I don't think that's right to do, but it also is interesting to me that, like, he's lived with this voice going on in his head for so long. He's had this break, but he's not dead yet, but he also doesn't treat, like, there's more to Zane. I'll just put it out there. I just feel like there's more to Zane other than just he has the voice living inside of his head.
Yeah.
I really, really think there's something also having to do with, there's gotta be a reason that voice was there, and, like, if I was the voice...
Telling people to kill people?
Yeah, obviously, because that's what I do. If I was the voice, like, it would make sense to choose someone who is vulnerable already to that. You know what I mean? Who already has,
he's
like,
obviously vulnerable. He was, like, cast into the pits... into the pits because his father wanted him to snap, and if he was not an allomancer, he was gonna die there because his own father did that to him, and he's seen his brother be a king, and not a king, but a prince, and just doing whatever he wants while he's suffering the streets. Like, imagine Vin, but then with with her father alive, treating her sister just like a queen, and then she's just being completely up.
Kelsier is very similar to Zane in a lot of ways, and yet different.
No, we can agree that Zane is messed up. I think he's a bad person. Bad Zane deserve his death.
Melanie, I'm secretly just really concerned for you that you're gonna end up in a relationship with the Zane sort of man.
No, I will not. I will not. I mean, a book. It's a book. My only thing where I agree with Skylar a little bit, and I agree with some criticism that other people gave regarding Zane, is that things in the plot should not only be drivers for the plot. They should have their own explanation for being there. So I don't think I would like to take away Zane, but I think I would have loved to deepen him more, that he is not just this thing that wants to destroy Vin's relationship with Ellen, that is trying Vin. I don't know how, but there could have been probably a better way of putting Zane in play, as all the other characters are in play. Like, you don't feel that Straff is only there to help the moving the parts of the story. You feel like Straff is reasonably there. He wants the kingdom for himself. He was already there before, but Zane just feels a little bit too pointless, besides being something to shape Vin and move the plot in that. Like, he has no...
I think that was kind of my point, is I feel like Sanderson probably could accomplish most of what's desired by Zane in a non-Zane way.
Yeah, but I would have loved for him to put Zane, but then create more for Zane, and that's why I was a little bothered with the fact that he was killed so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's because if he would have been there, just being this lamppost in the night to like move Vin to question herself and deepen her relationship with Ellen, as other characters were in the other book. But then in this book, they were expanded, and I'm like, okay, they were a lamppost in that book, but now I can see why they existed. But he was killed when his role was done. Like, when Vin rejected him, done. As if he was just in her head. Just as the little devil in her shoulders. Just like, nah. And then as soon as she took the other decision, poof.
Maybe I feel the same way I do about Kelsier, where I was like, Kelsier can't die. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like that same sort of like, but wait, we didn't really develop him. Yeah. But I think there's other parts of him. For example, how in the world did he end up with Tenzin? You know what I mean? Like, and I am really excited for the third book and where that's gonna head with that, because I'm like, I want to know how in the world they ended up together. You know what I mean? Like, how he ended up having him as a servant. And I also want to understand, like, it introduces the voice, and that voice is coming back. Like, I have a strong feeling it's coming back. You're looking at me and telling me I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And like, so I don't feel like his death was like, I don't feel like his character is completely meaningless. Wasted. Yeah, like, was completely like a random thing. I feel like maybe in the same way there was little.
I can confirm he's not completely disconnected from the rest of the world.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, that's the only problem that I had with Zane, was that he was kind of just for Vin. But I did really love, even though I can see how he's just a plot device, I love the thing that this device brought me. Like, as I said earlier, I said that at the beginning I was seeing him and seeing everything, and you also said, like, Ellen was lacking. So I'm like seeing all this like amazing strong man that is just self-driven and whatever, and then you have, well, he even would reject the voice. Like, we never saw him listening to the voice ever. So he's however he's doing it, cutting himself or whatever, he is being stronger than a voice that is completely coming from him. So he's strong, but then he's so weak. He's so loathable. Like, he's so when he concludes his character, it's just And that's where you see Ellen growing, acquiring these small things that at the end of the day, they are small. Like, they are important. The things that Twindle show Ellen, they are important to be a man, to be brave, to be presentable, to not let people just use you. But those were small things. The biggest things Ellen already had, and Zane didn't have. And Zane was not able to get those. And Ellen was able to be Zane in the manly outward part, and then his inward strength was just so much highlighted, in contrast with Zane, that I don't know any other way in which we could have seen it so perfectly as we saw it, with the contrast of Zane. That's Zane. That's, again,
we've done two characters so far.
Yes, well, partially because Ellen what do you think about, like, Ellen? I hated Ellen in the first book. Well, you guys know it if you watch the first video. If you don't, you should. But I hated him, and he just grew so much. It was just amazing how
Yeah.
Sanderson was able to.
I mean, I love Ellen particularly by the end of the book, but pretty much throughout the whole thing, he's just so much more like alive and present from the start of this book. Clearly, Sanderson's attention is much more focused on him. He gets much more dynamic in how he is and interacts
even
and
just
struggles.
Screen time, or not screen time, but book.
Screen time.
Yeah.
But I would say if I had to critique it, which I'm not inclined to, but if I had to, I'd say Ellen's change. I know it's happening over a decent amount of like in-world time, but it seems like he changes pretty quickly to me. He gets the suit, and then he sort of like starts doing it pretty well. And so for me, I kind of wish I could have seen a little bit more of like the disconnect between the face he presents and then the actual Ellen inside the suit, who's still kind of a bumbling fool.
I didn't see that.
I didn't see
It's a
that.
very, very minor critique,
Yeah.
and it's
Okay,
probably
okay.
just a preference on mine.
I think I felt like it was very present. And the reason I feel like that is because Sazed had to reiterate what Twindle had been saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, later on, he makes a comment about, like, I think Sazed said it better than her, you know what I mean? But essentially they're saying the same thing to me.
Yeah.
And it's after, I think it's after he loses the throne. He's about to be voted out. And I think him being voted out is actually, like, a key turning point for matching now this, like, faux character that he's projecting and the real character.
Yes.
I feel like him actually getting taken out of office was the thing to actually make him realize, I need to be this man.
Yeah.
Not just, like, put up
Have
this
my
front,
little-
I need to be this man. And that, like, distance was closed for me then. So I felt like the distance was kept for quite a while. And I think as well, like, because Ellen, the change being quicker isn't as surprising for me, because also Ellen is a very, like, even when you first meet him, he's a scholar. He, like, is a very adaptable, he has curiosity about the world. Like, he seems like the sort of person who is more dynamic. Obviously, he's open to change because he was already, like, talking before about, like, having a world where the Scott were not enslaved. And that's, like, already something in him is, like, he's adaptable. Like, he seems
He's
like
adaptable,
an adaptable
and
character.
he had all this is actually the potential that I could see in Zane. There was potential, but there was not. But in Ellen, you see actually, like, the potential, the inward potential that then just comes out when he's shown how to do things rightly. So, Ellen, I'm in love. I am, like, at the end, when he became a Beastborn, oh, my heart was just like, yes! Yes!
I have less critique against that now.
Oh, you're so good. And again, I just said this before, but I love the fact that he became a Mistborn after he became a man. Because it would have just been so easy to make him a Mistborn. Like, okay, of course now he's strong and confident. No, he became strong and confident. I trusted him when he had no powers but his willpower.
Yeah, he was recognized as a good man well before he gained power.
And a strong man. Oh, I love it.
I do appreciate how this is right at the start of the third book. So I'm going to mention it, but like the first time we see Ellen using his Mistborn powers, it's been like after like a year of training, and he's still kind of like oof, out. he's just a little clumsy with it. He's just not elegant in the, or particularly artful in the way he uses his powers. To me that's. It helps keep alive a little bit of the sort of the
He doesn't stop being
young
Ellen.
scholar.
Yeah, and I think as well by this point, like they've aged a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's actual time that has passed.
3-4 years at the end of this book.
Yeah,
from
and
the start of the first.
just even think about like how much that does to you in your 20s, like the difference.
1 year.
What?
Oh, 2 years at the start of the first. It was 1 year with Kelsier, and then 1 year when this book starts.
I'm talking about at the end of this book, about 3 years have passed.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And like that's a big amount of time. Like when you're talking about like your teenage 20s, you know what I mean? Like you change a lot in those years because one, your hormones are going less crazy, and two, you're like actually developing a brain, and you're like, oh, I can think now. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot more going on, and so like
they're
it felt
in a very
plausible to me and good.
They're in a very crazy situation, so obviously they are
maturing
real quickly.
Yeah, and especially Ellen, like he's never been in things like this. Vin is accustomed to this lifestyle, not Ellen.
Yeah,
and
she's
so
mature
Ellen,
for
it's
her
a lot
age.
more of a slap in the face, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, my guy. Like, come on, let's
That's
go.
why I wouldn't be
You know?
that surprised if he would have snapped, because some people snap because Trav snapped. How, I don't know, he was a rich man all the time, so how did he snap? I don't know, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal when he snapped. Like, there wasn't like a big situation that made him snap, but everyone is different. Like, Kelser snapped a long time after a lot of suffering.
So nobles beat their children pretty much to death to try to make
Oh,
them snap.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's referenced a couple of times, even in I think the first and the second. Yeah, around the time they hit puberty, adolescence.
Wow.
Yeah, so because allomancy runs in noble blood, and so all the noble families want as many allomancers as possible.
And so they try and literally get that out of them.
So that's why Straff had so many kids
Okay.
and intentionally basically forced them
Yeah,
to
yeah.
live like.
Okay, yeah, I know that part about those like
So,
bastards. So
Straff was only kind of exceptional in the fact he was so willfully willing to ignore the Lord Ruler and just keep having kids.
yeah.
But the process of what he did to Zane wasn't unique.
Yeah, no, I know what I thought before. That's good to know. But like, what I thought was that you could snap for a little thing, or you could snap for a very big thing.
Oh no.
So what I was thinking
it's like
was
a life and death kind of reaction.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I was thinking. Like, was Ellen put into that situation till this point? So I didn't know that he had been put into that situation. I was like, well, if he snaps now that the world is ending, I would understand that.
Yeah.
And there was one line that made me think that he has snapped, and it's crazy because then I know that he didn't, but like he's talking with Spook in one point, and he tells Spook like, hey, like go and do this, like, and he changes Spook's mind, and Spook's like emotions change immediately, and then he's like, wow, that felt like I was soothing him. But not even like with allomantic. He's not thinking, he uses the word soothing, but he's not thinking on allomantically soothing. How is that? Soothe?
Soothe.
Yeah. He didn't think that he was allomantically soothing him. Just Brandonson used... Brandon Sanderson.
We'll just call him that.
Yeah, Brandonson. Brandonson used the verb.
Okay.
But I think what he then, now that I know that he was like, is he gonna snap? Now that and it would have been normal, like he would become a soother because he is such a a politician, so it would have made sense. But I think what Sanderson was pointing out is that he had the power of changing people's minds even before he was a Maceborn. So that's why now I understand. But I even thought like, is he snapping?
That was well spotted.
Another very like poetic thing that I feel like I enjoyed about Elend was his whole friendship with Jastes, and how that ended up was so like just tragic and needed.
Wow.
It was literally
So
like
good.
these two friends who think the same about certain things, and they're splitting these different directions, and you can just see like Jastes is just crumbling with it all.
Balding.
And Elend, yeah. Elend is like trying to keep it up, and like he's becoming stronger by it, and Jastes is crumbling even further. And granted, both have experienced like a fair amount of suffering at this point. Like, well, probably Jastes a bit more, in all honesty, because he hasn't lost Vin yet, but I do think, like, Elend, it's not to, like, understate what he went through, you know what I mean? Like, he also did go through a lot of change and deep changes at once, and it's interesting to see that, like, both of them are philosophers, and that's, like, and they held to their ideas, and then when actual application time came, two different paths, and so it felt, like, very poetic justice to have him kill him.
One of the big differences was Jastes was alone.
Yeah. And, like, and it felt, like,
he didn't
very,
have what the
very
support
much...
that Ellen had.
Yeah, no Sazed,
like,
no Vin.
It felt so just for Elend to finally kill him. And it was like a moment where you
so
respect
good.
Elend. You're like, I respect
so
Elend now,
good.
because he recognizes the difference between, like, it's not a good thing to kill people, but sometimes it's needed.
Yeah, it was like justice. It's like, this is, and I loved, oh my, that was, thank you for bringing that up, because I have forgotten. It's so good when he's just like, he's like, please forgive me, and he's like, I do, but my people won't, and he's like, and it's just
my empire can't.
something like that, and my people can't. It was just like fitting because yes, Twindle died and Clubs and Dodgson, and those are the only three that we know. But like all these other people that are killing and families that lost the people that they love and lovers that love their men or women, and it's all because this little piece of shit that couldn't control his colors, or like that even brought the colors there, and Ellen went and asked for, let's do this together, and he said no, and it's just like, I'm sorry, I do forgive you, but this is, and it was hard, like I couldn't, like, you would do that, and like the world ended, and you come crazy, and you bring to the city your colors, and then you ask me for forgive, I will feel bad to not forgive you, like it will be super hard for me, and even like if I don't forgive you, or like if I like it's fair, I would make someone else kill you, like. Ellen did it himself when he's not an assassin, he's not a warrior, like, and having to kill
he's a king.
But he's a king, and he just, this was the right thing to do, and it was hard for him, but he did it. I'm just like,
it's also rare.
So good.
I feel like it's rare to read books these days, at least, where I feel like true justice has been carried out in a way that is somber and serious, like not in just like a like retributive sort of,
not vengeance,
like, not vengeance, not like really personal, or like even just like I don't know, almost petty sometimes, like people making light of like killing a person, you know what I mean?
Like,
this felt serious
is clearly
and high
so
stakes.
such an failure, so evil, like let's just get rid of him, good job. Whereas
it felt
Ellen
like
takes it so seriously.
It felt like a real, not only a moment revealing of Ellen and his character, but also revealing of like, this is how real justice looks. Real justice says, looks you in the eye and says, I forgive you, but this has been done. This is a wrong, and you have to follow through on that. Yes.
No, that's so good. So, okay, let's forever, eternal review. But let's go really quick with Vin, and then our last one is gonna be, well, Vin, we have talked about Vin a lot. She grew a lot. She's great.
Yeah.
I think
I'm not sure I would add much more. I mean, the
Yeah.
Tensoon, Zane, Ellen dynamic is the majority of her growth.
No, that's fine. We can gather the pieces throughout
Vin
the
is
book.
doing better. She's made up her
She's
mind.
doing great.
She's a grown girl now.
Yeah. Okay, so Zayzet and Twindle. Such a good. I thought I liked Zayzet. I thought I liked what was happening there. I thought I knew everything, that all the layers. But now it's just, Zayzet has just been like, he's a fleshy person. He exists. He's so real. No, it's real. It's just like him being in love and him feeling like he's not like full man because he doesn't have his parts. And him then like accepting the love that he was receiving, and then losing this love and being depressed and not now knowing if he believes religions whatsoever. It's just such a that poor man. Like, I was so angry with Sanderson. And I'll call you Sanderson now with Lawrence. It's like, if anyone deserved true love, was he. Why are you punishing my man? He's just being good.
No, I know. I like man, I am not gonna lie to you. I like at the end of the first book, I was already like, he's like at least my top 2 favorite characters. You know what I mean? I was like, I really like Sazed. Absolutely took it this book. Like, absolutely took it. I was like, you are my favorite character in this. And I just, there's something about the way that Sazed thinks about the world that feels very genuine and very plausible, and it makes you like way more invested in him. Also, I just love Twindle so much. Like, both of those characters in conversation with each other was so helpful, because he seems like such a like mild man in so many ways at first, and she seems like such a force to be reckoned with, and seeing how both of them can be like different, you know what I mean, around each other, and like they just mesh so well.
Can we just, sorry, side comment, can we just appreciate Breeze for a little bit?
Okay,
because
yeah.
that scene where he's in like the Scar warehouse and he's just being an absolute saint.
Yeah.
I love Breeze so much.
Yeah.
Breeze is a close second probably for me. Like, Vin and Ellen are great, but it's Sazed and Breeze for me. I love that man. Anyway, what?
You kind of remind me. You have that like sort of aura about you where you're like,
Well,
I will 100%.
my
I don't
book
care.
and,
I don't care.
But okay, continue.
Maybe that's okay. Anyway, but when Sazed is there being Sazed and just an angel, and then Tindwyl comes in, and they have that little conversation, and Breeze just sits there. I think they sort of confront over the religion topic. Sazed stands his ground. He's like, no, this is important. I'm going to keep studying the prophecies. And Tindwell's like, this is ridiculous. Like, do something useful, basically. And Breeze sits there and he basically just soothes them both a little bit to make Sazed a little more bold and Twindwell a little bit more like
open,
just receptive to hearing Sazed's point. And then they leave together and he's just like, hey. He's like, mission accomplished.
This is great. I even love when he had his panic attack. Like, he was just like, in a corner. I'm like, that would have been me.
So, okay, I didn't mention the emotional impact. That one, after, I mean, gosh, I actually did shed some tears when I read that bit, because it's just that, the self-loathing and the impotence he felt in that moment. But then, so he crawls into the building and hides. And then a little while later, I think it's at the start of the chapter, we get his sort of like, he's trying to process and he's like, I can't soothe, I'm useless, they're dying out there, and I'm just like this, like, quivering mass, I think he calls himself. And it's such a low, dark moment, and then one of the soldiers turns to Sazed when they find him and he says, we could feel him the whole time.
No, I know, and it was like, Breeze. Okay,
I
love Breeze too. I do love Breeze.
That's so sweet.
I feel like it was so like it was so sad to watch that happen. Where he was like, especially his little friendship with Clubs, where he's just like, this is the one person who like can't feel me, and then he watched him like literally just
cleaved in two.
Like
exactly.
Apart.
It was not. It was not
it
that.
Wasn't even like he got crushed or like, you know, it was like just so visceral. You know what I mean? It was like
obviously he had this panic attack. Like, of course, the strongest person you know has been destroyed, and then he has been only the soother. Like he feels like he's as you were saying, like he's nothing. He cannot fight. He cannot do none of these things. Kind of similar to what Ellen was going through at the beginning, and then he was doing something.
I mean, it's explicit. He says, I can't even burn my medals. Like, he can't focus enough to soothe, and he's not even realizing he's doing it. You know what I mean? It's just like...
my heart. I cannot believe... No, that's great, but I just cannot believe someone can just say that this book was just mean and just preach. Like, my heart feels moving while I talk about this, which I didn't feel with the first book. That was good, but this is just...
That's a great job.
Such a good book. But well, okay, so Sazed was great. I love him. I think we have talked a lot about him too. I think we have covered most everything. Do you have anything else to add? I don't know.
I mean, I could talk a lot more about Sazed.
Okay, do you have something else to add about Sazed?
Well, we've generally addressed it, but yeah, like the dynamic of like the scholarly eunuch who sees himself as a passive kind of just advisorial role, and then he's actually just this badass, this revolutionary, just like the internal like that lack of, for such an intelligent man who is very self-aware, it's amazing when you see a blind spot like that. To me, that's one of the most humanizing factors about him as a character, is how people can just have these outrageous blind spots. And we all do, but there are blind spots, so we never see them, and it can be incredibly hard to recognize that. And so, like, I mean, he sort of wakes up to it a little bit when he chooses to hold the gate, and he burns the medals, and for the first time in his life, he's like, oh, I'm strong. And it's like, in his own way, in that moment, he kind of like, he almost like reclaims his masculinity in that scene. Like almost in the same way that Elend grows and becomes a king, like Sazed steps out of that scholarly role and he's like, no, I have power, I will use it.
I love that scene where he's just like killing Kolos and he's just there's so many good scenes in this book. I just forget it and then I remember it. I'm like, wow.
It's in that very moment that he essentially willingly like allows, he does kind of what Vin does. He's like, she's probably going to die. Like he knows her gate has fallen.
He lets her choose
to defend the men.
He lets her choose to die.
And it's just like
yeah, and then when he fights with Marsh, so good. Oh, but March, my beloved March. He has just put it so much in the line. Like, he has died more than Kelsier died.
Because you really think that, like, Marsh is, like, he has had almost a more tragic storyline than Kelsier does.
Yeah,
and then Kelsier, you feel like dies, and it's just like, but at least he like did something, and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Marsh, it just feels like he's like trundling on in this like horror of like in his own personal hell. It feels horrible for him. Like it just feels so horrible. It's so sad.
You're gonna really hate the
No,
and this the thing is that he traded his life not for like immediate death, but for complete slavery to this inquisitor thing. Like he's just now he's gone, and everyone else is just living there. He doesn't have eyes. He's these blue shapes. Like that's not eyes. Okay, you cannot see colors anymore ever. Like he cannot see nothing. He's just trapped in this world, in these horrible things, and it's just. We cannot go that much into him because the other book goes a lot into him, and I would say I will spoil the next book. But the point is that it's so depressing in this book to see him. He is I love what you said of the frame thing. What she means is that you have on the Shakespearean plays, you usually have the beginning of the play is like a frame, so it's like some people are telling the story and to someone else, and then you have the whole play of the story that was gonna be told, and then at the end you have the close of the frame. And this book is kind of like it's that's perfect. It starts with Marsh and Zayzit, and it ends with Marsh and Zayzit. And what in the world? We don't know. We just know that everything that happened in the beginning and that happened at the end was that everything in the middle is encapsulated between this bigger fight that we are just one day gonna see in the next book. So it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, random
good
side
book.
note.
Book good.
Book is good.
It's just, you must read this if you have not. This is just, your life is gonna change. My life changed. I love it so much forever. Whoever says the contrary has the right to be absolutely wrong. But well, thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
I feel like there's
fun.
still forever. We could talk forever.
We could talk so long.
My heart is now like starting to burn. As in,
Yeah, I feel sad.
Makes me want to go.
But well, thank you for watching all this long time, and if you have not subscribed because this is cool, and like it because they are great, and not me, they. So yeah, thank you for watching. Next time, see you.